Let me just quickly share my screen and we're going to take a quick dive into the girl roster. And I would encourage, there's some people on the line who are actually very familiar with this tool in addition to our presenters. So please, 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 when you're in your respective groups, feel free to chime in, as well as add comment at the end when we have time if you want to add to some of the things you heard today. The Girl Roster is one of the council's most popular tools, and is really meant to make more tangible to its users the understanding, the makeup, and the quote unquote universe, as we call it, the picture of girls in their communities, in the communities in which they intend to program or in which they are currently programming, and how to make those girls, particularly from invisible to more visible. So quickly, what is it? It is a brief questionnaire, about 10 minutes per household, maybe even less, that can be administered via Android phones or tablet. It can also be done by pen and paper, and we have very clear instances in which that has been the case. It is made up of non-sensitive, impersonal questions, and this is very, very key. It is for program planning, not research purposes. One of the reasons that this tool is so popular is because it gives you a snapshot of what is going on in the real lived experiences of girls in your communities in a very quick, very easy way without the rigor of necessarily research. And that doesn't mean, therefore, that it's not valuable, it's not useful. And in fact, the information that's gathered can often lay the foundation for the research that you then do. It provides key information, key action, as we call it, actionable information to design intentional and evidence-based program plans. It's easy to implement and it's user-friendly, and it's rapid and arguably affordable to use. And that would really depend on a myriad of factors. It depends on who's rostering, how many people you have available to implement this tool, the number of households you're planning on going to, the landscape of what you're visiting. If you're in a very densely populated urban environment, it might take longer. More time often can mean more money. So it kind of is contingent on a number of things, but I think the people who have used it here on the line would attest to the fact that it is it is generally affordable to use and certainly quick to use. So what does it actually do? You go household to household and you ask about the girls that live in that home. Who are they? Where are they? What are the various characteristics that make up their identity? And in very non-personal and non-sensitive ways, you ask these questions. And through the use of that tool, through the collection of that information, you can create visuals of the quote unquote, again, universe of girls in your program area. And that includes through maps. And I'm going to show you some kind of, not fake, but simulated examples of that, both through the tables that get generated when you're doing the girl roster, as well as the maps. It helps you establish the denominator for your girl population. So you might be going into brand new communities where you think you maybe know how many girls there are, what their situations are in life, but this really helps you clarify that. We worked with a partner, for example, in Gambia, that a very small country, for those who are familiar, who felt very confident, the 16 new partners that were with us, Ava was there, felt very confident that they knew how many girls lived in the communities in which they worked. And when they returned, they were shocked to find it was easily double the number. And that's because so many girls were invisible. So many girls were living in these households and these compounds where they didn't go out. They didn't spend time out in the community. They were stuck at home. And so these community members and local staff came back stunned to find out that there were so many girls they were missing through their outreach, through their programming. It also helps you understand kind of general characteristics of the girls who live there. What's their schooling status? Are they in school or not? In what proportion? Are they married or not? Do they have children? Are they living with their parents, with a guardian of some sort? How are they being looked after? And it supports program planners to identify then what are the key segments we need to reach based on these different proportions. We have a huge proportion out of school, way more than we expected. Maybe we should consider doing out of school type programming for them. We have an enormous population who are married and we weren't aware of that, or who have children and are unmarried. This is going to help us now figure out what are their needs. How do we tailor programming to them? So that is what the Girl Roster's purpose really is. What it does not do, and this goes back to my point about it being a programming tool, research tool, is not a primary data collection tool. You are not going to each girl themselves and asking them about their situation. You're speaking to preferably the female head of the home, or the woman in that home who knows the most about her family who lives there, who can tell you the most about the general and basic characteristics of the girls who live there. So again, it is not used for research, it's for program planning, program design decisions. It does not collect personal or sensitive information. And the last thing I will say, sorry, can you all please make sure that you're muted? And the last thing I will say, and Ava emphasized this with the guide in general and a lot of what she was talking about with maps, is it's not the end. It is part of a learning journey. So the Girl Roster is just one step in your process of kind of understanding and really tailoring the program as best you can to the girls that you're most interested in working with. When you collect all this information, it gets spit back out, and this is something that we've provided technical guidance on how to do. It gets spit back out, so to speak, into what we call output tables. And this is just one example of the tables that are provided. This is the overview. And this was actually done with a densely populated site in a very HIV affected commune in Haiti post-earthquake from 2010. So as you can see, it's laid out with first the categories of unmarried, married, or unmarried and married. So we do that because that is probably one of the more important indicators of vulnerability, particularly when thinking about marital status by age. So first it goes by unmarried, unmarried. Then within the category of unmarried, you have in school, out of school, or does she have a child? And under married, does she have a child or does not have a child? If you wanted to look at layers, like I want to know about whether the married girls are in school or not in school, that is a possibility. But in the overview, this is how it's listed. And that is because most girls who are married are not in school. And the priority of the bigger vulnerability here is that they are married and that they have children or don't have children. So that is what we are programming for. Under unmarried, we have in school, again, out of school, and has a child. And if they are in school or out of school, we want to know, are they living with both parents, with one parent, or with neither? Each of these respective boxes you see here with the numbers is a segment. That is what we mean when a girl segment, and when we're thinking about specifically programming for a segment. I want to program for the girls who are out of school, living with neither parent, and are unmarried, 13 to 14 years old. There's 9 of them. Those are the girls I'm most interested in. Those are the girls that need me and for whom I have the skills to address their needs. That's the segment I will program for. So this is kind of how you orient yourself and use this tool. But you can also create visuals, and I'm going to show those in a minute. I wanted to show you some of the thinking that you can get through when you are reading through this. How can these results shape your program decisions? So for example, we can see here that there are 27 plus 36 girls living with neither parent, unmarried, and they're under the age of 13, right? So that's a huge proportion of girls in this overall population that don't have a parent with them and are very, very young. And while they're in school, they're quite young to be living without any kind of parentage or guardianship. You might consider programming for that population. There's also really interesting dropout here, right? From the ages of 10 to 12 to 13 to 14 in school status. It goes from 206 girls to 80. Suddenly, it should be about the same, right? If there's girls 10 to 12 attending who are 206 girls, it should be around the same number at 13 to 14. Now, this could be a reporting issue, or it could be an issue with dropout happening between those two ages, which makes sense when we think about puberty and what goes on in the ages of 10 to 14, that as they are transitioning through major life changes, they might be leaving school. So this would be an interesting population maybe to look at. You also have this. 107 girls who are relatively on track, we believe, right? Maybe they're behind in school, but it looks like they're doing well. They're older, they're in school, they're living with both parents, they're unmarried. Here maybe is a pool of potential mentors for you. Girls who are older, who can guide your younger participants, who can serve, who can deliver program activities, who can keep safe spaces, who can advocate for your work. And then in this case, that was most striking for the organization that did this, given that they were most interested in working on HIV rates and working against HIV rates, was that there were a high number of girls married and with children in this site. And they, in this instance, realized that they were reaching none of them. So girls who are married, who have children or don't have children, are obviously very vulnerable to HIV. To do this roster and realize that they were reaching none of those girls was very eye-opening. And not only that, but they were able to see where those girls were as a result of the maps the girl roster generates. So I just want to show you, have you imagine with me what that might actually look like. So imagine this is your program area. You know you are going to program in this space, and you know that the population total here is 5,400. So you decide, okay, these are the 3 communities within this space, within this program area that I'm going to roster: community A, B, and C. I know nothing about this community net. I know nothing about the girls who live here. I just know this is where the houses are. This is where I'm going to work. I go to every household in these communities and I ask them, who are the girls who live here? What is their schooling? What is their marital status? What is their age? Are they married or unmarried? Do they have children? Are they living with parents or not? And so on. And I start to learn who the girls who live there are. And I find that for, let's say, each of these equals 5 girls 10 to 14 years old, I'm finding the proportion of girls 10 to 14 who live in those communities, and that's the age group I'm interested in working with. And so I find out that as a result, community A has 60 girls, community B has 140, community C has 150. Now I'm trying to also reach targets. So maybe I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to focus on the communities where there's 140 and 150 first, because that's a huge proportion of girls 10 to 14 that I'm interested in working with. And maybe I'm being funded to do so as well. And then I layer that. I ask myself, okay, well, but I'm not just interested in 10 to 14. I want to know who's out of school or who's behind. And so I ask that additional question using the girl roster, and it tells me this, that my instincts are right, that the community B and community C has a higher proportion of girls who are out of school. There's 100 girls out of school in community B or behind, and there's 55 in community C. Well, maybe now the girl rosters help me narrow it even further. I'm going to prioritize community B, the pink community, because there's 100 girls and I am interested in girls who are out of school. And I also know, because of what Ava was describing earlier, I've mapped my resources. I know what exists, that actually this makes sense, because here is community B, the pink community, all the way over here, and all the way over on the other side is the school, the only school that serves this whole program area. Well, that makes sense, that there's more girls out of school over here because they can't even reach the school that is there for them. Okay, so that's what the girl roster is helping you do, is brainstorm these kind of things. The GPS coordinates that the girl roster also collects can tell you where the girls are you want to reach. So not only where they are, but who the potential mentors are in the community. So again, with that same map, you might find 20 to 22-year-olds who are doing well. They've completed school, they're not married. They're the ideal kinds of girl I would, or young women I'd want to mentor my girls who are out of school or behind in school, to encourage them to stay in, to implement extra tutoring, to help them with their homework, whatever it might be. So that, in essence, is how the mapping process comes in when it comes to the girl roster. Here's a real example that Ava very kindly shared with me this morning, that actually came from Haiti as well. So here she has overlaid the girl roster results. So just again, this one particular segment, 10 to 14 in school, 10 to 14 out of school, in the blue and the red respectively. And she's placed them on the map where they were based on the GPS coordinates in relation to the resources that exist. So it may reveal to you that some segments that you're interested in live very far from the resources that they should be able to access, or that some communities actually lack really key resources altogether. So in this example, you can see there's a church, there's a wood collection area, there's a casino, there's a toilet. I do not see, however, a school, which could explain why there are more red dots for girls who are out of school. Okay. So that's a very, very quick, again, a very cool example, I think, of how mapping can be used to really help you start to understand your communities better, think about like what your girls really need and where they might be. But to get way, way, way more information, I really recommend this resource, the Intentional Design Guide. Chapters 4 and chapters 5 really lay out for you the purpose of the girl roster, how it works, and then how to use that information for segmentation, what I described earlier about really identifying specific groups with which you want to work and planning for them. And if you want to actually access and adapt the girl roster itself for your specific needs, you can contact the Girl Center at girlcenter@popcouncil.org. I'm going to stop there and emphasize that you are going to learn so much more about this and its practical uses than I could ever explain from our wonderful speakers today. Wenceslas Yope from Batonga Foundation will be talking about mapping for program sustainability and scalability, and again, highlighting the girl roster